Hello, my name is Aaron Clegg, and I am doing my presentation on how to design a resilient network. So on the agenda today, we are going to detail current threats to networks, current security solutions to those threats, network hardening techniques. We're going to identify goals to see implemented to add resilience to the network, the importance of network security, and then we will do a wrap up, time for questions after. So to address the first slide, what are some current threats to networks that we see in our current cybersecurity landscape? Well, to identify this, we can actually look to our textbook that identifies the top 10 network attacks. But for this presentation, we will only be addressing three threats, which are phishing, which is a social engineered method that is used by malicious actors to gain access to sensitive data, such as personally identifiable information, otherwise known as PII. Phishing comes in many shapes and forms, and some of the more popular ones, I guess you could say, are email phishing. Everybody knows a grandma or someone who has sent some money to a Nigerian prince in order to get their $1 million fortune. Other methods are smishing, vishing, and whaling. And then we have our insider threats. So when an individual or group of individuals who are either inside the organization or close to the organization have partial or full access to authorized information about the company and use their privileges and authorization for malicious intent or to cause harm to the organization. Instances of an insider threat can vary from attempts to conduct financial fraud to the exfiltration of critical and confidential information. So then the last threat that we'll address here is the Trojan horse. So a Trojan horse or a Trojan is a type of malicious software that is programmed to take over the target device to impact the confidentiality, integrity, and availability of that said targeted system. Now, to gain entry, similar to how the Greeks laid siege on Troy, they imitate legitimate applications or software intended to be initiated by a user post, which they then start executing the embedded malicious code to activate. Some examples of Trojans are Trojan Banker, Trojan Downloader and Trojan DDoS, Trojan Spy, Trojan Mail Finder, and backdoors. So now that we know these threats, how do we attempt to fix or mitigate these threats? So for combating phishing attempts, the main thing is awareness. So ensuring that people know what phishing attempts are, what they sound like, and making sure we're holding a recurring security meeting where this gets addressed to ensure that everybody in your organization has a proper understanding of what phishing is and how to identify it. Some signs to identify a potential phishing attempt are the display name and email doesn't match. There's a sense of urgency. They may use act, or they may act angry or use fear. So fear mongering. The email signature is not appropriate. It may have spelling errors, a generic salutation, or a sender asking for private information. It may have attachments and things that don't look right, but as I said, the main thing is being aware of the signs and knowing how to prevent phishing attempts is of utmost importance. So for fighting against insider threats, the best thing that you can do is to ensure that you have a secure access policy in place based on the ideology of least privileges. This means that information should be available and accessible on a need to know basis or if their position holds the authority to possess and access that information. So in order to help combat these types of attacks, you can also implement the use of a non-disclosure agreement, NDA. So if an employee leaves the company, it prevents them from leaking confidential information and potentially damaging the integrity of your organization. And then the last solution here is ensuring that a proper log of equipment is also necessary in this case in order to ensure that everything is tracked. So if an employee does in fact leave, you can ensure that all company devices are returned, lessening the impact of a breach if one were to occur. So lastly, in order to address the Trojan threat, the best way to combat this kind of threat is to ensure that all necessary updates are being made to the system and devices. So not only that, but practicing good security hygiene and applications and systems are hardened using the best security practices are also essential in this case. So to piggyback off my last statement with system hardening, it is one of the best things that you can do to help with preventing attacks or breaches. But what are some network hardening techniques that we can use? Well, some network hardening techniques that can be used are things like encryption. So ensuring that your data is being protected in both transit and in rest to ensure that if it does end up getting transferred, it remains unreadable, rendering the information useless to whatever threat or person may have captured this information. Um, Intrusion detection systems help identify potential threats and activities within a network and provide real-time alerts about these activities. Another one is firewalls, so implementing the use of a firewall to help filter network traffic, incoming and outgoing, based on your organization's predefined rules. And then the last thing, which has certainly become more popular as the years have gone on, is implementing the use of a VPN. So this is to help make sure that workers that are working remote um, have remote networks that are more secure. So if an employee ever works from home or work from a place that is outside the main office, a VPN is in place to ensure that all data being transferred over is still secure and encrypted. So what are some goals to implement to add resilience to the network? Well, I think that one thing that is a good goal to ensure that we are holding a security awareness meeting every 90 days to help bring awareness to our employees about current threats and how to identify them, as well as how to combat them. Another goal that I would implement is to help implement more detailed security policies on access control, password policies, and updates to our systems and devices, as well as ensuring that our incident response planning that is currently in place is sufficient. So if an incident were to occur, this also assists with helping people to properly understand the roles and responsibilities of their job. So now that we've addressed that, I want to take this moment and just reiterate the importance of network security, as network security in modern times is more important than it has ever been in the past. With the ever-growing environment that is the internet, threats become stronger and more innovative every day, which is why if we can implement these network hardening and resiliency solutions and techniques, we will also be in the best spot to help combat and mitigate any attacks or incidents that may arise. Now, keep in mind these won't prevent attacks permanently, but your goal is to reduce the impact and, like I said, mitigate these attacks. So to wrap up this presentation, we covered current threats to networks and solutions to those threats, as well as additional network hardening techniques. We addressed some goals that we would like to see to add resilience to the network and went over the importance of network security. So if you do have any questions, feel free to comment below and I will answer to the best of my ability. Here are my references for my presentation, and I appreciate you guys watching.